Hey, Pete, how's it going?
Very good, sir.
That's good to hear. I wanted to talk about Bilderberg.
Bilderberg, yep.
What do you know about Bilderberg? Anything?
It's an international organization. They, gather every year 150, 200 people, somewhere along those lines, and they're all well-connected political business people, and they talk about a variety of ideas.
Oh, do you think that's a good idea or a bad idea?
Well, it happens all the time. I mean, in various forms, I suppose. You tell me what's different about Bilderberg.
How come the mainstream media doesn't cover it?
Well, there's probably an awful lot of these types of situations. You might say that this one is a little different than most, but I mean, there are all kinds of societies and organizations and think tanks, and call them what you will, organizations that have membership around the world, and they get together on an annual basis to talk about things that interest them.
Really? They don't get to talk about policy that is going to change, like the price of gas, the price of cotton.
It's not what they talk about, it's how much influence and how much they can, make things happen. How much pull they have within, I guess, governments internationally.
Well, when you look at the attendees, 138 members, you got representatives from 24 chairmen of banks of petroleum giants, 23 financial institutions, you got Goldman & Sachs, Google, HSBC, 2 U.S. Treasury secretaries, Harper, he was a 3-time attendee. You got the International Mutual Fund. You got Henry Kissinger, which is a former U.S. secretary.
You don't think people who think differently, who are powerful people but have different philosophies and agendas, you don't think they get together or communicate on a regular basis to see, who echoes their sentiments?
So you're telling me that a group of these most powerful elites, there's also royals there. There's many different CEOs. The CEO of TD Bank. There's people from Oxford, Princeton.
Right.
People from Harvard, Stanford.
So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Tell them they're not allowed to communicate? They're not allowed to share ideas or push their own agendas? What?
I thought it was illegal for politicians to meet behind closed doors and discuss policy without informing the public.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, so all the politicians can meet behind closed doors, talk about whatever they want.
They do it all the time. It's the nature of politics that you have meetings and you build consensus and you move your agenda forward. These things happen all the time. That's the way of the world. That is human nature, is it not?
Also, zero transparency is what we're supposed to accept.
No, it comes out. It comes out in their own government policy and budgets, and we see it. Listen, we know that there are swings left and right in political, international movements. It happens all the time. This is how things are done, and this is how they sort of get the lay of the land elsewhere, I suppose. And it happens on every side, I suppose. I mean, there's not just two sides either. I mean, there are factions and movements, and they crisscross, they intersect. There's parts that they will agree with that half of them won't, and then, they join up on the other side. I mean, there's even some links between the Communist Party and some of the ideas of this Bilderberg group. Is that not right?
I don't know. You tell me. You seem to know so much about it, apparently. How come you're not covering on mainstream media? I mean, you talk about the World Trade Organization, the G8 meetings. There's lots of coverage there, but the moment that Bilderberg meets on June 6th, there is zero coverage, but yet there's a robust security.
So you're suggesting I'm not saying something on purpose? Maybe I just don't have that much interest in it. Maybe it's one of a zillion things that we could mention and spend time on, and we can't do them all.
You don't think it's important to talk about major petroleum giants and chairmen of major banks and institutions and universities who have the most influence on all of the decisions that get made every year? You don't think it's important to talk about that?
Oh, I absolutely do. Let's talk about it. I'm not stopping. I'm not saying we can't talk about it.
Why am I the only person that has called and talked about that? Nobody else has talked about it.
Good question. What, are we all in cahoots against you, Todd, or what?
It's only you that inferred that. I didn't imply that at all.
Well, you're the only one. You're the one saying you're the only one. You tell me why you're the only one. We're not stopping anybody.
No, but you're not talking about it.
Well, that's not up to me. I'm the host of the show. I don't bring up all the topics. I bring up so many, but I don't.
Bring up some.
I do. I bring up lots.
You don't think that talking about Bilderberg is important? All these different people from all these different countries?
Sure, people want to talk about it. I'm more than game, absolutely.
Didn't you tell me last week that it was ludicrous that a bunch of officials from different governments wouldn't talk and meet?
No, I didn't say that at all. I said,
you were talking about the weather
they talk and meet all the time, but you're talking about a whole different level of conspiracy where they're actually getting together to plot out and make all the plans, and they're all in accordance with each other. I mean, really, I mean, it's hard enough for governments internally to get much done, let alone internationally.
Yeah, for the elected officials, but the non-elected officials, they get along quite well. And behind closed doors, they all drink and smoke and all order hookers behind closed doors. And I'm sure you know all about it, too. What about NATO?
Oh, yes. You know something, Todd? I regularly go to these things, and I'm on the inside, and they're telling me everything they know.
I doubt. I doubt they do. It's called compartmentalization, if you didn't know about it.
Anyway, listen.
NATO. 28 countries from NATO. They all have one treaty. So you're telling me that 28 of them can't all work together to modify our weather? That's 28 countries. You said that couldn't do it.
Well, if they can't really sort of get along or maintain their adherence to things that they've agreed to publicly, I think it's perhaps a different order of difficulty to do a whole lot internationally behind the scenes. I really think that you're stretching you're giving them too much credibility for their competence and capability.
Trillionaires and billionaires that meet behind closed doors and you don't think they can get along, my friend, they got more in common than you'd like to act like. Just because you say it isn't,
yeah, they probably can do more than governments. Anyway, listen, we're 2 minutes over time for our news. I got to get there, but by all means, we can talk again, Todd.
For sure, but you know what? Just being complacent doesn't make it go away. Eventually, it's going to come out, and then you're going to say, man, I wish I had to pay more attention to it.
Well, I'm going to say you're not the only one that's not complacent. You seem to have this notion that you're sort of a lone voice out there, the only person trying to do things or expose things. And,
well, I'm looking at more than just the lamestream media. I'm going on alternative media, social networking, where people actually talk and don't have to pay to see things. We're actually sharing ideas, not just events and talking about people.
Right. And maybe you should do a little less of flattering yourself, Todd. But anyway, listen, we'll talk again.
Ditto. I like...
All right, got to go. We're 3 minutes late for the news. Let's do that and get back to hour 2.
Call now, 273